the real star of this evening is Mr. Ronald M. Schernikau, who is delightfully pictured on the front of this book. Schernikau has an unforgettable biography. So at the age of 6, his mother smuggled him in the trunk of her car, crossed the border into West Germany to join his father, who was then living in Lehrte near Hanover. Incidentally, fun fact, this was also where Ursula von der Leyen grew up, and he probably went to school with her. She gets kind of cameo in this book. Lehrte is the eponymous small town of Schernikau's small town novella, which he wrote at the tender age of 18, still at school. It's a coming out story set in high school. It became a bestseller in Germany at the time. And he was interviewed on TV, including on Austria's now defunct Club 2 talk show that featured the likes of Nina Hagen, where the hosts, and the guests, or the ghosts maybe, chain smoked and ad-libbed. And you can see that on YouTube if you Google. It's a very entertaining show. He showed a remarkable talent for a good punchline, such as, wenn ich mit allen nett sein wollte, mit denen ich nicht schlafe, hätte ich viel zu tun. Also bin ich nett zu denen, mit denen ich schlafe. Und das ist Politik. Roughly, this translates as, if I wanted to be nice to everyone I haven't slept with, I'd be very busy. So instead, I'm nice to those I sleep with, and that's politics. In 1980, he moved to West Berlin, studied writing at the Leipzig Literaturinstitut under Peter Hacks, and became a vibrant and eloquent figure in Berlin's gay scene. Motivated by a letter from Hacks, which stated that if he wanted to be a great poet, he would have to move to East Germany, Schernikau became the last West German. This is a bit of myth building probably, but apparently he was the last West German to acquire East German citizenship on the 1st of September 1989, 2 months before the fall of the wall. On October the 20th, 1991, he died of an AIDS-related illness. He's buried in Berlin. You can make a pilgrimage to his grave, which I have done several times. He left behind an estate of quite a remarkable, prolific writing, including an 800-page manuscript called Legend, which he finished shortly before his death, and also Die Tage in L, Days in L being Leipzig, various other short pieces, poems, essays, and his diary, and he was just 31. For my feeling, the reason that I chose to try and find a publisher for this book is that the plot itself is very simple, and you can summarize it thus. A queer teenage boy wakes up on the day he's going to attend a school committee meeting that he has requested to discuss his seduction of a boy his age, whose parents are demanding his expulsion, while B, that's the narrator, and his mother, Leah, a single mother, question why. So he uses the pillars of democracy inside the German school system to question the way he's being treated. And I wrote a piece called The Quiet Radicalism of Ronald M. Schernikau for Words Without Borders. And I think what I meant was that the text lies in a refusal to accept by society his unapologetic queerness, which demands, in a sense, it demands the sacrifice of his education and, by extension, his place in society. The remarkable aspect of the text is his ability, B's ability, to turn the moral debate around and reflect it back at those who are bullying him.
Okay, so what you call this a coming out story, and I mean, it also at some level is a Bildungsroman, it is a coming of age story, but in fact this is not coming out. This is literally breaking down a wall and saying, I am not looking for a small place of acceptance where you will say it's okay. I am asking for a radical reworking of social norms and the world.
You're right, he never came out. He was always out, yeah.
So in that sense, I mean, it comes at a point in queer literature in the late 70s, early 80s, that is, on the one hand, Edmund White's A Boy's Own Story, the early writings of Hervé Guibert, who would chronicle the AIDS crisis in France, There were a number of key writers, but this is, and especially for a work which unfortunately was mostly received as, oh my God, you're so young, how could you write this? But actually, this is much more lucid. This is much more political. This has, B spends some of his time fantasizing about Leif, some of his time talking about, you know, his daily life, but a lot of his time looking at what the world is. It is a more deeply philosophical and political work than any of the sort of rather older and more writers who chose to fit in.
Conservative?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, they wouldn't have been seen as conservative at the time, but yes, of course.
Yeah. He had no access to many of the things that, say, Edmund White did. I mean, he was, there's a part of the novella where his mother is addressed by the headmaster and said, well, you have to get with the program. You have to tell your son that he can't just behave the way he's behaving. And she says, well, what business is it of the school, what my son is doing? And she said, my employer doesn't have to know about my sexuality. Why does the school have any say in my son's? Which was absolutely radical at the time. And also there is an afterword by Ben Miller, who's a writer in his own right, which actually says that the mother figure is a kind of an interesting but also essential character in this novel, to show how all the factions of the small town are against this family, this pretended family as they see it.
Yes, no, I mean, I think Leah is crucial in that she is prepared to fight at a time when nobody fought. I mean, until you get to 69, early 70s, the tentative acceptance of a little more democracy and the final erasure of the Nazi anti-sodomy laws.
Yeah.
I mean, at the point when she's doing this, West Germany, let alone East Germany, had not, you know, there was no embrace of, you know, I mean, it was not, this was not the United States with the sexual liberation of the 1960s and early 1970s.
Yeah.
There was not that sort of headlong rush. So her support of him is not only crucial, but it is breaking with motherhood. I mean, she is vilified as a mother for supporting her son
because she's supposed to uphold the tradition and the customs of motherhood as seen by West German society at the time, which in many ways was very traditional still. Yeah.
What's interesting is, I mean, his relationship with Leif, which is barely a relationship, it is a flirtation. There's a little light sex play. And Leif is unattainable in lots of ways. Leif is a good boy from a good family, and therefore eventually, regardless of who Leif feels himself to be, Leif will be normal.
Absolutely.
He will fit in.
Yeah.
He will do all of the things that B not only cannot do, but chooses not to do. I mean, actually, we don't know whether B could or couldn't do them from the very, very beginning. He has no intention of attempting to fit in. He is going to grow up to who he is going to be. And as he says at the beginning, I mean, this is all very, you know, man and woman, you know, he is not putting an expectation on who he is going to be. You have a piece you want to read, which is about Leif.
I think it's a really good time to pick that out. I think I'm going to read it from my book. So probably would pronounce it Life. It's Leif, and it's an uncommon name, but it exists. And he is in his room. B is in his room reflecting on the difference between him and his crush. Life is the only one considered viable. Life is human as opposed to masculine. Vulnerable now, which inspires hope. B goes into his room, seeing in life more than his own suppressed jockishness, more than his nice short hair. Who is life? A member of the group, the joiner in persona, the longed for happiness. Open the window, lie down, glasses off. What was the beginning for B is the end for the other. When life risked becoming like B, he gave up. I'm not gay. That's true. B has learned not to be able to fulfill expectations and consciously, eventually, how to hurt on purpose. B has learned to hear footsteps. They echo back at him and become stairs. They come towards him and go past him. B has learned to hear that brief hesitation, that little inflection of making sure. The more obvious B is, the more obvious the others are. B stares back to unsettle them, fixes his gaze on them, turning the look in their eyes from stupor to derision, perhaps understanding to zero. So walk blindly through the city, multiply their stares with imagined ones, disguise your certainty as uncertainty, your discouragement as courage. Somewhere in life's mind, this experience exists too. He knows it from his own reactions, from school, from his parents. Drill is everything. Everything is drill. It goes right through me. I'm 17 and a man, and there's no need to crack the whip to teach me the illusion of togetherness only exists as having children, family trips, a car, vacation photos. A man exists as a small power plant that is decontaminated at home. He exists as his children's submissiveness, as success at work, as a tie, as a cock. If you can't come up with misogynistic stories during Monday morning's banter, you're not a man. If you're not disgusted with yourself, you're a pig. B lies in his chaos. His room is his history. What life can expect from life is blissful normality achieved by doing absolutely nothing, no matter what, eyes shut. Life has moved, life has broken out, only a little, but already enough to fail. Love, whatever that is, life has tried it and gave in when B touched him. The room in Berlin after breakfast was filled with the two of them when they embraced. They didn't know what was happening. Both were speechless and lost and very close. They went downstairs to the others in silence, separated from them by an experience which they tried to repeat for weeks, the experience of another. What eyelashes can be, a look, eyes closing, chapped lips on my skin, then calm below, the feeling of being known, the desire to say, my love, darling, the hollow of the pillow, a pretty picture. Who is life? Too bad. Came too late, too early. A few chance moments have made life realize how little divides him from another world. When the mask crumbles, the world crumbles. It moves, it changes. How close is life to me, who had to decide like me, who at least fought? Will perhaps find it harder than B because his fight is over. Can life be happy? Couldn't I live like that after all?
I think the thing is that even having read the book a couple of times, I don't know whether he could, but I think that his own approach to himself, his self-honesty, means that he couldn't.
No.
I mean, I'm of an age with Schernikau. I grew up queer in a small town in the west of Ireland in what we lovingly called Holy Catholic Ireland. I was on the very first Pride March in this town in 1981. There were so few of us that we were able to take a small corner in Merrion Square and have only 2 blankets for the picnic. And this has changed, but at the time, choosing, if you could choose, there were those who chose to be visible, and there were those who chose not to be, and I don't particularly judge them for that. If it was easier, and let's face it, it was illegal here. It was, you know, it wasn't just the church, it was the state, and everything else. So, I mean, what interested me is, and we talked about this on the phone the other day, is so Slate magazine a couple of days ago published an article entitled, "Was the LGBT movement," I will punch anyone who says LGBT movement, was the LGBT movement's pursuit of visibility, scare quotes are theirs, a mistake? And what underpins all of that is shut up, sit down, behave, wear a suit. You know, I mean, to quote Tom Robinson in 1975 in The Single Glad to Be Gay, the buggers are legal now, what more are they after? And B cannot and will not do this. This entire book, written at a time when any form of acceptance, even grudging, was not a given, is a rage of visibility. And I think that aligns enormously with, sadly, where we are now. I mean, not so much in this country, but certainly in the UK and in the US. And, you know, it's like, has this all been a terrible mistake? Why don't we start, you know?
Well, this text, when we started to talk about this event, one valid question was, why now? Why bring this book out now? And I think, as with other texts that I've been interested in, it's not happened immediately. There were lots of attempts to get it published. There were bits and pieces out there floating around. I think I lost count of how many publishers I wrote to, but most of the time they said it's too experimental and it's too short. And that's a problem for us because we don't know where to put this. It doesn't really fit. Does it, like, you know, where does this go on the bookshelf? Well, it can go in many different places. That's actually not a good thing in bookselling. So, but why now? Why are we back there? Well, I think I have to sort of mention, first of all, that it's published by a non-profit publisher. UDP, Ugly Duckling Presse, is a registered charity. And they survive because everybody who works there works pretty much for free. And what happened is I had these bits floating around in the internet, and I got contacted out of the blue by a Fulbright scholar who was in Leipzig, who said, "Do you have the whole text?" I said, "No." And I explained this whole thing. Actually, a trans man, and he said, well, I think we're going to do it. And that was it. And it took more or less 8 years for somebody to pick it up. But in the meantime, in those 8 years, a lot had changed and a lot had shifted to the point where as we said on the phone the other day, it's arguably a worse time we're living in now than it was when the book was written in many ways, because there was a solidarity, a unified purpose which is splintered, and, you know, there's a backlash taking place, like you're quoting Slate magazine. You know.
A lovely article in the New York Times today, yesterday possibly, by a, I'm sure, terribly charming middle-aged gay man that says, "I'm gay, but I'm not queer." And it's like, you can accept or not, you can adopt what used to be a slur and use it to yourself or not, but you do not get to tell other people what to do. But what it is it's like, and my entire history as a queer man has been all of the progress that we have made since Stonewall, since before Stonewall. The Wolfenden Report was commissioned by someone whose own son was gay, and you go back to obscenity trials and whatever else, was all achieved by people who either had no choice but to be visible, or who chose to be visible. You know,
wasn't it a case of the Wolfenden Report took place because the man in question, Leo Wolfenden, was his son was being blackmailed?
Yes,
yeah,
exactly. And but all, you know, I mean, whether you're talking about Marcia Johnson putting a brick through the window at Stonewall as a, whether you want to call her a drag queen or a trans woman is entirely up to you. She never really made the distinction. The people who made this possible were always people who were visible and who chose or had no choice but to adopt visibility. And everyone else went, oh, well, now that we can get married, fine, I'll come out of the closet and we'll all be fine. And then would you all mind toning it down a bit? Would you all mind not doing this? You know, when you look at, if you go back to Paris is Burning, the black drag scene of the 1980s, which gave us Vogue and indeed gave us Madonna. It was very precisely about, by living openly, things will change. If people know who you are, they fear you less. And I think that what is extraordinary about this is here is a 17/18-year-old, both the character in the novel, but also the writer of the novel, let's not forget, living in a relatively small town, in a not terribly advanced world, saying, this is who I am. And he takes whatever comes with that, and he deals with it. And quite astonishingly, it is a very hopeful book, and he is a very hopeful character.
That's the one of the great things about it, is it actually has a hopeful ending. It resonates at the end with a kind of exploration of Berlin. He is expelled, spoiler alert, but he embraces that and decides to go to Berlin. And also the other part of this, the communism intersection with communism is not insignificant. I mean, it's a fusion which I haven't come across in many books before. Where I grew up, which was near London, the only time I can remember a fusion of, or a solidarity between gay rights and, say, working class rights was during the Miners Against Thatcher movement.
But they repaid us. I mean, the gay community supported the Miners Against Thatcher.
Yeah.
And the miners then supported the gay community against Section 28.
That's right. Yeah.
And Pride, the rather schmaltzy film of the same name.
Yeah.
Very brilliantly documents that the solidarity of people who support us, we support. And, you know, the solidarity of the gay community at the time for the miners during the strike was a wonderful thing. But I mean, they didn't do it expecting something. I mean, in precisely the way that B does not embrace people expecting something.
Right.
If it comes, it will come.
Yeah.
When it did come, it was all the more surprising. You might think, you know, working class people, I mean, there's a level of homophobia and whatever. Yeah. Actually, my experience of certainly working class London was they were much more straightforward and kind of whatever, you know. I'm not even don't frighten the horses. I've always wanted to frighten a horse, but it's never quite happened. There's to what extent?
Yeah.
I mean, Schernikau was obviously extraordinarily well read at a very young age.
Yeah.
To what extent do you think that what he's doing, both the optimism in it, but also stylistically, is a reaction against Jelinek, Gunter Grass, an earlier generation of writers who are, however brilliant they may be, profoundly pessimistic.
Yeah, true. Yeah, very dystopian. Yeah, he doesn't get pessimistic either. I mean, later in the essays, he manages to point out, for example, there's one essay about the explosion of rents, which reading it now seems ridiculous. The explosion of rent prices in Berlin due to the lifting of I think it was called something like Mietpreisbindung. I don't know exactly, but it was something along the lines of there were fixed rental prices, and at some point this was renounced. and he's having a picnic in one of these essays with his friends, who none of whom have any considerable money worries, and he tells them what this will mean for his life. But he does it in such he calls himself the oracle in this essay, and he kind of keeps referring to himself as the oracle, and sort of, yeah, he just, it's not, there's no rancor, there's no bitterness, there's no rancor.
While we're dealing with the essays, can you talk to us about, so he was commissioned to write an essay on bakeries.
Oh.
And he wrote an essay called The Bread Roll's Journey Towards Socialism. I mean, he was never less than sort of funny, but I mean, basically, the bread roll's journey towards socialism exists because he was in Leipzig at the time, and in Leipzig, in East Germany, there are two kinds of bread rolls. There are the bread rolls that are made by the state, and there are the bread rolls that are made by private bakeries. And the bread rolls that are made by the state taste of paper. And you can't buy the ones that are made in private bakeries. So there you go. I mean, his entire journalism is shot through with both a wit and an irony and an ability to see the fundamental injustices of the world and not despair.
And not despair. And that's really a very rare quality. What we haven't talked about actually at the moment is that he writes only in lowercase, and he makes up words. And then he throws in a quote by Marx, and then he'll throw in a quote which is actually something he read in Brigitte magazine, you know, and he'll throw in. So as a translator,
how do you deal with that? Yeah. Because I mean, okay, there are no quotation marks here. There's nothing to say. And also, he switches between past and present. I mean, there is a timeline. When he's getting up on page 1, he is going to the school community meeting that will decide his fate and his expulsion. But in the meantime, he needs to tell us about the relationship, about life, about all of his considerations for a variety of other things. But not only is this all lowercase, but there are none of the standard markers that we use to say, this is dialogue, but also this is a quote from Marx, and while to some extent some of these in the German might resonate, you might think, oh, that sounds oddly
right.
How do you navigate this?
I just looked everything up. I mean, if I had any kind of hint that it might be a quotation of something, I looked it up. There are Schernikau groupies in Leipzig. There are whole bunches of people that are kind of really into him. So you could always consult one of the Schernikau groupies. Okay. There are people in my circle of friends that know Marx back to front. They're like, oh yeah, of course, that's Marx, you know. I was just lucky. I have a lot of, you know, bright, smart people in my community, so I could ask a lot of people. And if in doubt, I just Googled it until I found an answer.
Yeah, but it's one of the things that people don't factor into the process of translation.
Yeah.
There is an assumption, and I don't even mean by readers, I really mean by editors and or publishers, that translation is a garbage in, garbage out process, that you feed in words and words come out the other side, and they are the same words, obviously. And of course, they're not the same words because connotation and denotation are not the same thing, and context is everything. You know, how does a translator change a light bulb? It depends on the context. Yeah. And your problem is in doing this, as it should be for all translators, and something that, at least as currently configured, AI is not either capable of or interested in doing because it does not have intent, is to understand context and to think, oh shit, this is probably a quote from something.
But then you have to decide what to do. So you've pointed it out quite correctly that once you've established this is a quote, how do you render it in English? And I have a very good example in the next reading where I think it's actually a stroke of genius. And it was not entirely my idea, I have to.
Okay, I will allow you to read it because it was not entirely your idea.
And you can work it out what it is if you... This is an example of the translator making the original better. We good? In biology, because they don't have sex ed, B declares gay men do the exact same thing as the ballet dancer on this stupid slide. They put on makeup, dress to attract attention, camp it up. And what's more, he adds, now very dramatically, we've all made them this way. Boys traditionally expect to be catered to, so the girls put on the silliest get-up to stand out. And gay men do exactly the same, knowing for sure that it won't work. B sits down again and thinks, nothing is more self-destructive than the patriarchy ridiculing the conditions it has produced. One day, every 6-year-old will laugh at this morality and scientists will seriously doubt their ancestors' sanity. Don't accuse gays of acting unreasonably in an unreasonable world. What's the difference between a 36-year-old gay man and an 18-year-old girl when it comes to innocence and its opposite? What B sees in the discos of both scenes is shockingly similar. There's someone dancing. Short, teased, brown grey sprayed hair, big clip-ons, plucked eyebrows, perhaps rouge, but the eyes, eyeliner, eyeshadow, red mouth, contouring to accentuate the nose, a shirt subtly gathered at the waist in the latest style, fingernails to match. And on the left hand, a few obvious rings. On the wrist, a chain with heavy links and tight jeans that accentuate the crotch, out of which peep black seamed pantyhose slipped into high-heeled pumps. He's tuned into love's airwaves, people, from his head to his hollow back. Have you ever noticed that women with overly long, fake, polished nails can't make a fist? They're not meant to work, nor do anything creative. They're supposed to be useless things to look at and fuck, to make men feel validated and entitled, raised and dressed, only to be lied to. You've got it easy, but the bourgeoisie has ripped the sweet sentimental veil off gender relations and has reduced them to monetary relations. Man versus woman becomes everyone versus everyone else. The price of profit is the erasure of the dividing line between the sexes. Blurring it doesn't work because the ink it was drawn in dried up long ago. Bourgeois avarice forces outlets to create expensive fashion for men too, drives holes into the earlobes of youths, drives women into the arms of hairdressers who cut their hair short, and huge bears into tiny shoes. David Bowie is the desperate dernier cri of fashion moguls and the first proclamation of a new category of sex in which it won't matter that words are a fallacy. Gender? Why not bender? And Marilyn Monroe is just another woman in a series of drunk, overpowered blondes when Arthur Miller has her slurring at people in tight pants. Fags wear pants like that. Because one fashion follows hot on the heels of another, and the in crowd follows hot on the heels of the out crowd, and that's why their new look follows hot on the heels of the old. The hotter half is gay, and the remaining half tries ever more desperately to be as popular with the ladies as the first half is with each other. Hello, says B when he enters. I'd like a pair of jeans that fits well and is cheap, too. The sales assistant says, don't we all? Lovely, B says cheerfully. If the demand's that high, the supply must be phenomenal.
So how did you come to your solution?
So David Bowie is the desperate dernier cri of fashion moguls. So in German, it's at the end of this sentence, he says, can we go up one?
One, yeah.
Warum
nicht gut?
Yeah, so Geschlecht, it's terrible wordplay. It's the worst wordplay I've ever come across. So schlecht and gut. But
Bad and good.
Geschlecht is gender. And gut, I mean, it's just like, I just didn't know what to do with that for a long time. And me and the French translator racked our brains for quite a long time. We sat in the library for quite a long time, sort of scribbling away, trying to do mind maps and things like this and working it out. And then he kind of hit on the idea that it has to rhyme. And that's why you take something, I guess, that's just out there as a slogan. You don't know where it came from. It's in your brain. It's rattling around there somewhere. And I was, thinking along the lines of Boy George and the gender bender.
Yeah.
So that's how we came up with it. And I personally think it's better than the German.
I think it's brilliant. But I mean, looking through all of this, there are so many. I mean, my German isn't great, but I mean, there's an awful lot of this where I'm pretty sure he's just, creating his own portmanteau words. I mean, when we're dealing with the elegantly tucked in waist,
Taille dezenten bunten Hemd, yeah.
I mean, that is not a German word.
It is now.
It is, well, it is now, yes. But also the überlang künstlich lackierten, so overlong, painted and lacquered, and then fingernails. And because German is an agglomerative language, you can do that. You must have, did you ever feel tempted to just run things through with no spaces?
Yeah. There's a part of me where it became unintelligible though, because there are so many. I do that. I do leave.
You do, yeah.
I do leave some of these overlong adjectives just as sort of compound adjective. But yeah, my brain was quite fried quite a lot of the time when I was trying to work out like how much readability do I afford this translation, considering all of the aspects taken together.
Well, I mean, the thing is that for an English language reader, but also for an English language editor, the first hurdle is legibility. And so one of the things they will say is, okay, it's already all in lowercase. You're giving us no cues as to what's dialogue and what are quotations. You haven't bothered to tell us what's past and present, and actually everything's being written in the same tense. And now you think you can just like get rid of all the spaces between words?
Yeah, exactly.
So no,
They would run with any. I mean, Ugly Duckling Presse, I was very blessed to have an extremely tolerant, patient, thank you, Milo, editor. And it was just really, they would have been happy whatever decision I had made. But I did feel that it was a huge number of decisions on every sentence that I had to make, basically. More so than it. So when people
astonishing you, that's what translation is. But
there you go.
You wouldn't think it.
But when people say, "Oh, the book's very short. It probably will only take you 8 weeks." So a unnamed publisher said, "This book took me about 2 years, on and off."
Okay, so my equivalent, and this is not all about me, but my equivalent was I was asked by Penguin many years ago to do another lost classic, which was Colombian novel called Que Viva la Música by Andrés Caicedo, also dead long before I was about to translate this. And again, on the face of it, you read it and it is a coming of age story by a young woman from a good family who turns to communism, drugs, sex, and salsa, which is quite really important in Colombia. I mean, particularly in Cali. And I mean, like most people, when you're asked to do something, the first thing you do is you skim read it. You just read it for pleasure, and that's all great. And then I discovered that, I mean, her descent goes through Western rock music, and so there are quotes of Western rock songs and whatever. And then I discovered that from about page 40 to the end, and it's about as short as this. Half of the book is either quotes of lyrics from salsa, titles of salsa songs, all of which have been woven into dialogue. None of them are marked out. Some of them are non sequiturs, and you have to look up all of them. And so, I had been given, I think, 2 months, maybe 3 by Penguin. And after 3 months, I went in with 1 page of typescript and the 7 pages of annotations that went with it to explain what they were, and said, I need more money and I need more time. They said, you can have more time. So this ends, so it ends in the clock tower in Berlin, in the station, where he is surrounded by all his lovers and everyone he will love in future. And this given that this is somebody who understands the fundamental hypocrisies and the inequalities of the world, he says, only when I no longer want to escape the embraces, but instead want to change the world, will I be able to live and work. It's a profoundly positive message. How does, assume, if we equate author with character, which is always a dangerous thing to do, but I think acceptable here up to a point, how does his life, both within the queer community in Berlin and then subsequently in Leipzig?
Well, yeah, I mean, I will just read a very short paragraph from the afterword written by Ben Miller, which is, you must remind, this is Schernikau's voice, you must remind yourself with every self-indulgence that you find here that I was almost entirely unsuccessful for 10 years when I wrote this. You must consider that I was forced to deliver my late work in my 30s. If you are reading this book, then I am famous, a stroke of art. But now, if you are reading this book, then I'm already long dead. Hopefully, the time's past, the joyful farewell. How funny and odd are those things which lift us above our toil. This is Ben now talking. Then he died. Before he died, he wrote, the only thing that interests me is to be able to praise something I hate, negation. We may live in dark times, we may see world historical defeats on the horizon, but we should keep living, keep fucking, keep refusing to let the light go out. Writing and thinking well are not acts of resistance any more than subculture is automatically resistant. They are not sufficient, but they are certainly necessary. I embrace you.
That's a nice way to go. Fick weiter, or fuck more, is also the title of one.
Fucking.
Keep fucking,
Yeah.
yes, is the title of one of his essays written during the AIDS crisis, of which he was also a chronicler. Okay, we've got about 10 minutes, so I'm going to force some of you to ask questions. And I will literally point at you if nobody raises a hand. Come on. Yay.
The text, there was a lot of work involved in translating it clearly. Was it put together by the author over a short period of time, or was this something that he revised and edited?
Well, considering he was 17, 18, I think he pretty much wrote it straight. I don't know for sure. Nobody's ever asked me that. I'll actually say for sure. But I'm going to say he probably wrote it in one piece because it was published in 81. And he was born in
1960.
Yeah.
So he, I mean, I would guess only because of what it is, because a lot of it is stream of consciousness, that it was a single outpouring of everything that begins probably when he's 15, 16, but my guess is he wrote it, you know, in a couple of months and when he was 17 or 18. I mean, his later work is frequently made up. I mean, Legende, the bigger novel, is a novel, but it also comes with 5 additional texts that he didn't manage to publish in his lifetime, which are described as 5 texts that may be detached and sent back to the author if the reader does not like them. But he was so overwhelmed by his inability. Everyone thought he was a great writer and no one wanted to publish him. And, you know, believe me, there are writers out there now and possibly in this room where everyone is going, it's a wonderful piece. It's just not going to fit on our list.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, doesn't it just? Anyone else?
It's Kleinstadtnovelle, all one word.
It's a compound in the original.
We just found it really enticing to do that. We actually had a small, strange moment where we thought we could leave out all the vowels in the title. But then we decided to go for the slightly easier version, which is to leave them in. Because it's fun. Because I think that that's what I really got from working with Ugly Duckling Presse is when capitalism is not, the main focus of the book, and it's not about sales necessarily, although the nice tale about this is it's doing extremely well in the United States, and it's available, by the way, from all bookshops in Dublin. I checked today. You can order it. The good thing is that then you can really start to have the full reign of all of your creative possibilities as a translator, because somebody's not saying, well, I don't know, readership, but that's the joy of it. It's when you can go crazy.
Capitalized as well.
Yeah.
Whereas in the German
Just looked better. We
better.
did lots of mock-ups of the cover, and it just looked the best.
It's unusual for a translator to work so closely with publisher, things like covers.
Yes, very unusual. Very unusual.
They frequently ask your opinion and then disregard it. Mind you, they do that with authors as well. When somebody told me many years ago, when I was just starting out, never quibble with an American over the American cover of whatever book you've been working on. You will hate it, but they understand their market better than you do. And that has always been my experience. Has always been I have always hated the American covers. There's only one exception, and they were fine.
I hated mine, but then I've been very lucky to work with very small indie presses like Transit, who did a beautiful cover for Siblings.
They did, yeah. Yes, yeah. The thing with indie publishers is, among other things, they tend to have what we would call a livery, so that they have a specific set of fonts, colors, or a particular artist that they work with or designer that they work with, which is very useful, in selling books that bring them together, but also allows for things that, basically books written in English have gone, if we begin in about 2000, from woman standing with her back to us to woman with no head, as in her head is cropped off the top of it, and it's and these just replicate themselves because people look at other people's covers and go, oh well, that worked for this thing, so we'll do this for this. And
there was a German author who wrote an article about this recently, where her book has exactly the same cover except for tiny details as another completely unrelated book.
Yeah.
And it's just recycled. It's because it kind of that cover did well.
Well, it's one of the reasons why the livery of small publishers is really sort of mimicking what a lot of European publishers do. So first outing in Europe, you're published in France, you have a yellowish cover, unless you're Minuit, in which case it's white. You have text in a given font, in a given color, and if we manage to get a blurb quote, and we're much too big to ask for blurb quotes, we'll put a belly band on it. But therefore it is about the book, it is not about the image, because there are no images for most of them. Then when they go into paperback, they have terrible covers, just terrible covers. Sorry, anyone? Yes?
Yeah. Quick question. You said it was a bestseller when it was first published in German.
Yeah.
Question twofold. Why do you think it was such a bestseller back then? And secondly, reading Derek Scalliot's Irish Times, he said the gloom all over Germany because they're out of the World Cup is quite palpable.
I'm so glad I'm not there right now, but I'm heading back there tomorrow, and that's going to be a tough one. I just look in the Adidas store and see all those trikots and wonder what's going to happen to them as well. Why? I think it was kind of a manifesto. It was a small book, and people, young men especially, had it in their pockets as a kind of call to arms, really. Use the system to your advantage rather than be used by the system.
When was it published in Germany?
1981.
Well, it's also, it's a confluence both of a queer manifesto, but also a very political manifesto. It had been written by a rather charming, very articulate young man who you could put on television, who you could put on, and also this, you know, there are much older queer German stories, but they had long been suppressed. I mean, you know, God Almighty, I reviewed something by Magnus Hirschfeld that was only translated into English last year.
Oh, which one?
I can't remember the title now, but it's basically a series of interviews that he did with a variety of queer people, including trans people, and it's a beautifully, enormously compassionate piece of reportage, and it had never been translated, and you know, for a lot of the 20th century, wasn't available in German in German.
I mean, there's lots of passion projects as well, especially like Rixdorf Editions, which now is defunct, but it was based in Berlin. James Conway, Australian translator, he devoted a whole series to queer literature, and you know, I don't think it's not, people don't do it for the money, really. And one of them was The Third Sex by Magnus Hirschfeld, and it was amazing. It was an absolutely brilliant translation. So yeah, that's, I see the gaps in where, you know, where big publishers aren't doing things like this. You know, that there will be somebody who will come along and say, well, we really need this in English, or we need this out there.
No, I mean, it is, I mean, you know, part of his railing against capitalism generally, which is, you know, the demand is not always, the supply is not always phenomenal, because so if you look at, you know, publishing in post-war Britain, the bulk of new publishers were by mostly refugees, but certainly all of them were immigrants. Andre Deutsch, George Weidenfeld, John Calder, William Heinemann. They were by and large refugees from Germany or from whatever. They focused very much on literature and translation, on literature that seemed important. I mean, at its height, Heinemann had an African writers series, a Caribbean writers series, and was publishing all of these things. But all of them were gradually absorbed into what is now Penguin Random House. In fact, I think all of the ones I've just mentioned, oh no, two of them are within Hachette now, and the rest of them are within Penguin Random House. And therefore editorial decisions stop being about, this is important literature, and it becomes about, we need your turnover to increase. There's a hand over there.
Because when I first met you, Lucy, and we were looking for books to translate in a project that died in the pandemic, I'm very interested, because I understand that there were, you know, translation rights issues, but I'm very interested in the fact that other works of Schernikau's have been translated into English, and you know, where it is his most popular work in many ways, like his most you know, kind of boom book, you know, were there other forms of suppression of translating this book, and where were the big publishers, like what were their responses to not wanting to take it on, other than marketing, which is the same response I got from 20 publishers for my own book, despite having a Next Generation Award in Ireland in literature from the Arts Council of Ireland. Thank you, Press. Very happy to be published by you.
I don't think he is widely translated. I think a couple of his essays have been translated from the collections, but very, very little of his work has been translated. This is the shortest book as a one-off. So for me, it made sense to do that. But I do know of at least 2 or 3 other translators who popped out and said, "Oh, we've been trying to also get this translated for a long time." But that doesn't surprise me. It's not. There is no. That doesn't surprise me. I know that on so many levels. Often the books that I'm interested in are books that are just difficult to publish. So,
I mean, major presses, what are these days called the Big Five, editors do have a certain amount of leeway in terms of what they want to do.
Yeah.
Your problem is if you have a dead author, therefore there's a limited amount that you can do, and a difficult author, therefore, I mean, these, by and large, with an indie publisher and with most traditional publishers, the people who make decisions about whether or not they want to acquire a book and publish a book are editors, supported by publishers. In most of the Big Five, acquisition meetings are also attended by PR, marketing, and sales, who will tell you that a book they have not read cannot be marketed and cannot be sold. And therefore, an editor will be told, okay, if you can get it for less than $5,000, or if you can get, whatever, or they'll be told, I'm sorry, you can't offer for the book. Sales aren't behind it, marketing aren't behind it. And you simply cannot drive literature by what people who haven't read the book might be able to sell. It's a terrifying thing, but I mean, these people are doing it in good faith. What they're saying is, I mean, okay, so not a small book, but also a queer book. Douglas Stewart's Shuggie Bain. Douglas was living in the States by then. He was being represented by one of the most powerful agents in America, Anna Stein. They had got an American publisher for what is a very Scottish book. It was offered to 15 editors in the UK, all of whom said, and I'm only paraphrasing here, it's too small, it's too Scottish, it's too queer. Okay? It was eventually bought by my friend Ravi Merchandani for £15,000. The rights were bought. This is nothing. I mean, you would not buy a debut novel by somebody who used to be on television once on Love Island for that. And it won the Booker, and then it sold an awful lot, and then everyone said, oh, well, but we were always in favour of Douglas. Nobody was in favour of Douglas. It was a sop. I mean, as an editor, he was told, if you can get it cheaply, do, fine, but we'll never sell it, we'll never be able to. When they did the second book, whose title I can't remember now, which is not good. Sorry? Yeah, in Young Mungo. They went back to Wolfgang Tillmans, one of the greatest photographers of his generation, and took a slightly blurry photograph of two men kissing, and the entire marketing and PR department at Picador / Macmillan went, we can't do this. But for the fact that the editor said, we are doing this, it would not have been used. It'll put people off.
People.
Yes, I mean, and there's a great essay. Sorry, I need to shut up in a minute. I find it very difficult. There is a great essay by the translator Anton Herr called The Mythical Typical Reader in English. Because all of the editors and all of the publicists and all of the PR people are saying, well, the typical English reader wouldn't, please, bring me some of these typical English readers, because I've never found them. People will say, years ago when people were saying, yeah, well, translation is difficult. I remember once, I was new into translation at the time. I was at some party with, you could tell it was warm white wine, so it had to be a publishing party. And someone said, oh, what do you do? And I said, oh, I mean, yeah, I'm sort of a literary translator. And the editor, he was an editor, a young editor at the time. He said, we did a translation once. It didn't work. That's it. That is the entirety of world literature dismissed because you once published something and it didn't work.
Wow.
Anyone else quickly before they throw us out of here? Yes.
Yeah.
Is that just because it's not published in English before?
That is a kind of niche of the market. When something's coming out, it gets branded that way. It's in the series Lost Literature, I think it's under UDP, Lost Literature. So yeah, there has to be a reason for this book to come out now. That's their way of doing it.
In Germany,
But
it is,
it's still selling in Germany.
but it's always been sold in
Yeah, it's
Germany.
always sold.
Yeah.
It's always sold. No.
No, I mean, the thing is, lost classic. These are the two words that might get an editor interested in a dead author.
Forgotten gem.
Forgotten gem. It's like, oh my God, it's a lost classic. So, for example, when I did Que Viva la Musica, and this happened here as well, because you were translating at the same time as the French translator. What happened was that the agent, then representing Andrés Caicedo, said, this is a lost classic. And suddenly it was being translated into French, English, Italian, Portuguese, because the agent managed to, and it is one of those little phrases that people go, oh my God, it's a lost classic. You know, I mean, for those of you who have not yet lived through the fourth lost classic rediscovery of the novel Stoner, so I've lived through 3 republications, and every single time they say it was a lot. How lost has it been?
They've been lost, quite prominent.
You know,
Yeah.
I keep finding it littering places. Anyone else quickly before? Yes.
It was a bestseller, but how was it received by
It had reviews everywhere in the German press. It was he was invited to do all kinds of interviews.
And was it taken like seriously?
Oh yeah.
Formal, like stylistic level.
Oh yeah.
So young.
Absolutely. Yeah. There was great interest.
He did rather feel that they had overlooked the formal brilliance of the novella form, while focusing on the, you know, sex. And God, there's not enough of that in there.
There's not much of it. Sorry. So if anyone would like a copy, feel free to come up and ask. And
I get mine free.
thank you so much.